The scene is all too familiar: flashing lights, urgent voices echoing through the air, diplomats in sharp suits rushing through the labyrinthine corridors of the United Nations. Inside the hallowed halls of the Security Council, a hand is raised. One word: veto. A single gesture that can halt progress. The resolution, meant to halt a brutal conflict, is dead on arrival. Thousands of miles away, the bombs continue to fall, unrelenting in their destruction. The world watches, questioning. Is the UN truly a force for peace, or merely a stage for the powerful to play their games? The United Nations was born from humanity's collective hope for a world without war, a beacon of peace, where dialogue and diplomacy triumph over destruction and despair. Yet its failures are glaring and undeniable: paralysis in the face of genocide, an inability to enforce its own resolutions, and headlines screaming of inaction in Syria, Ukraine, and Gaza. The list goes on. The gap between its noble mission and harsh reality grows ever wider. For families huddled in bomb shelters, a UN resolution represents a potential lifeline, a glimmer of hope. For children in refugee camps, UN aid can mean the difference between life and death, a chance at survival. When the UN succeeds, lives are saved, futures are secured. When it fails, the cost is immeasurable, the loss profound. Each failed resolution feels like a betrayal of the UN's founding promise, a promise of peace and unity. Tonight on Global Pulse, we pull back the curtain on this complex institution. We'll journey from the UN's hopeful creation to its toughest moments, exploring its legacy. We'll examine its intricate structure, its notable successes, and its glaring failures. Is the UN an essential pillar of global order, or an outdated relic of a bygone era? The answer is complex, and it affects us all, shaping the world we live in. Join us as we investigate the United Nations: power or puppet. Let's begin this journey together. Title sequence. To truly understand the origins of the United Nations, we must journey back to 1945, a time when the world was left in ruins by the devastation of World War II. The scars of conflict were everywhere, and the need for a new path forward was undeniable. Cities lay in rubble. Over 70 million lives had been lost, and the horrors of the Holocaust and the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki were still painfully fresh in the world's memory. The sheer scale of suffering and destruction was unprecedented. The League of Nations, created after World War I to keep peace, had failed to prevent another global catastrophe. Out of these ashes, however, a new hope began to take shape, a hope that the world could learn from its mistakes and build something better. Allied leaders, Roosevelt, Churchill, and Stalin, recognized that the old ways of diplomacy and power politics had led only to disaster. They knew that a new, more united approach was needed to secure lasting peace. Together, they envisioned a stronger, more inclusive international organization, one that would bring nations together, foster dialogue, and prevent future wars through cooperation and understanding. On June 26, 1945, in San Francisco, delegates from 50 countries gathered to sign the United Nations Charter. This historic moment marked the birth of a new era in international relations. The Charter was more than just a document. It was a solemn promise to maintain peace, foster friendly relations among nations, and promote respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms for all people everywhere. We, the peoples of the United Nations. These opening words declared that this new body would serve not just governments but all of humanity, regardless of race, religion, or nationality. The creation of the UN was a radical act of faith, a belief that nations could set aside their differences, resolve disputes through dialogue, and work together to build a better, more just world for future generations. Its headquarters in New York City soon became a powerful symbol of these new beginnings, a place where the world could come together in pursuit of peace. The dream of 1945 was bold and ambitious. People everywhere celebrated, filled with hope that this new organization could truly make a difference. But the real test would come in the years ahead. The decades that followed would challenge the UN's ideals and test its ability to live up to its founding promise. Archival footage, UN Charter signing. The world watched with anticipation and hope, wondering if this new experiment in global cooperation could succeed. But hope alone would not be enough. The challenges ahead would be immense, and the world would soon see whether the UN could rise to meet them. The United Nations would soon face its first real tests, moments that would define its legacy and shape the future of global peace. Transition to next scene. The United Nations is a complex system, not a single entity. It's often seen as a single organization, but in reality, it's a vast network of bodies, agencies, and committees, each with its own role and influence. At its core are two main organs, the General Assembly and the Security Council. These are the heart of the UN's decision-making process. The General Assembly is the world's town hall, 193 nations, one vote each. Every country, big or small, has an equal say here, making it a unique forum for global dialogue. It debates global issues and passes resolutions with moral weight, but not legal force. These resolutions can shape international opinion, but they don't have the power to enforce action. The Security Council, however, holds real power. It's the only body that can make decisions all member states are obligated to follow. Its decisions are binding, and all members must comply. The Council can authorize peacekeeping missions, impose sanctions, or even approve military action. 15 members sit on the Council, 10 elected for 2-year terms, and 5 permanent. The US, UK, France, Russia, and China. These 5 have a special privilege. The permanent 5 wield the veto, shaping the UN's political landscape. Any one of them can block major decisions, making consensus both crucial and difficult. Beyond these chambers, the UN is a network of agencies. WHO fights pandemics, UNICEF protects children, WFP delivers food, and UNHCR aids refugees. Each agency tackles global challenges on the ground. These agencies operate in the world's toughest places, saving millions of lives every year. Their work often goes unseen, but their impact is enormous. The UN's structure is both its strength and its weakness. Its complexity allows for broad cooperation but can also slow down urgent action. Power is divided, sometimes for good, sometimes to a fault. This balance can foster collaboration but also lead to gridlock when interests clash. Understanding this system is key to understanding the UN's successes and failures. Only by looking at how decisions are made can we see why the UN sometimes acts and sometimes stands still. The machinery is vast, but the levers of power are few. A handful of nations and leaders can steer the course of global events. So, who really runs the UN? The answer is complicated. It's a mix of nations, agencies, and individuals all pulling in different directions. But the consequences are real. The decisions made or not made at the UN affect millions of lives around the world. Transition to next scene. The UN's history is a mix of remarkable achievements and devastating failures. It helped dozens of nations gain independence peacefully and authorized collective action in the Korean War and the liberation of Kuwait. These were moments when the system worked. But the failures are haunting. Rwanda's genocide, Srebrenica's massacre, and ongoing crises in Syria, Ukraine, and Gaza. In Rwanda, 800,000 people died while the UN stood by, paralyzed. In Srebrenica, a UN-safe area became the site of Europe's worst massacre since World War II. More recently, deep divisions and vetoes have blocked action in Syria and Ukraine. These failures have damaged the UN's credibility as a guardian of peace. The UN's legacy is one of both hope and heartbreak. Transition to next scene. The veto, wielded by the 5 permanent Security Council members, embodies the UN's power struggle. Any one of these nations can block action, no matter the global consensus. Intended to prevent conflict with major powers, the veto has become a tool of paralysis. During the Cold War, the US and USSR used it to block each other's interests. Today, Russia's veto shields Syria and itself. The Council is often powerless in major crises. The veto creates a 2-tiered system: strong action against the weak, inaction against the powerful. Critics call it undemocratic and outdated, undermining the UN's legitimacy. The shadow of the veto looms large, casting doubt on the UN's ability to be an impartial peacekeeper. Can the UN ever escape this trap? Transition to next scene. Away from the headlines, another UN is at work, its humanitarian side. The World Food Program feeds over 100 million people yearly. UNICEF saves children's lives and defends their rights in nearly every country. The UN Refugee Agency protects over 100 million displaced people, providing shelter and hope. The World Health Organization leads the fight against pandemics and disease. These agencies are the UN's quiet heroes, often risking their lives in dangerous places. Their work is a powerful force for human dignity and survival. While the Security Council stalls, the humanitarian arm keeps moving. This is the UN at its best, helping people, no matter the politics. Why does the UN so often fall short? The answer lies in its design. The UN was built as a forum for cooperation, not a global authority. It lacks its own army, relying on member states for troops and resources. Peacekeepers are borrowed soldiers, deployed only with consent and limited mandates. The UN depends on funding from member states, making it vulnerable to political pressure. The Security Council's power structure is outdated. Major powers like India, Brazil, and South Africa have no permanent seat. These built-in limits tie the UN's hands before it even begins. The world has changed, but the UN's structure remains stuck in the past. Can it adapt? Transition to next scene? Today's global threats, climate change, pandemics, cyber warfare, demand new levels of cooperation. The UN's current system is struggling to keep up. Calls for reform are growing louder. Expand the Security Council, add new permanent members, limit the veto in cases of mass atrocities. But powerful states resist change and regional rivalries stall progress. The central tension, a more effective UN versus the interests of the powerful. The future depends on reform. Can the UN become more agile, inclusive, and decisive? Failure to adapt could make it irrelevant in a world facing unprecedented challenges. A stronger, reformed UN may be essential for human survival. The stakes have never been higher. So what is the UN? Powerful leader or helpless puppet? The truth is more complex. The UN is a mirror of our world, reflecting both our hopes and our divisions. Its power is real but conditional. Its weaknesses are deep but not fatal. The UN isn't a puppet controlled by one master, but a stage where the powerful pull the strings. When interests align, the UN acts decisively. When they clash, paralysis follows. Yet, dismissing the UN as a puppet ignores its moral and humanitarian power. Agencies like UNICEF and WFP save lives independent of political deadlock. The UN is a paradox, a symbol of unity and a reminder of disunity. Its future depends on reform and the will of its members. In an interconnected world, collective security is our best guarantee. The UN is the best tool we have for global problem solving. It's up to us, we the peoples, to demand better. What do you think? Is the UN broken, or our last best hope for peace? The debate continues.